rolling. Greg, could you talk a little bit about your inspiration for this play? What was like the genesis of it? And because I think this is interesting, when you started writing it.
Right, well, I started writing this in 2018 when the crisis of the day was the great immigration crisis at the border, which obviously is still going on. And it just brought me to think about trying to create a situation in which Americans were the refugees in need and, having the worst said about them with little to no justification and what that would look like. So being a science fiction person, I came up with a sci-fi scenario in which that was the case and just imagined the inverse of everything happening now. And it just happened to, I just made a lot of decisions along the way that with current events, just a lot of things just have gained in resonance since I started writing. Just with random stuff I threw in there, like China and Seattle and, distribution of life-saving resources. That is kind of a thing right now. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And then, Sally, I wanted to pop this over to you. When you first read the script, what really excited you about it? What was really drawing you to the script?
Well, Todd, to be honest, it's like when I saw the title, my first thing was like, oh no, this is not a Sally play. This is not a play for me. Because of the kind of science fiction nod. And I actually like science fiction, but I feel like I'm one of those people that can't really admit to it. So I was like, oh, and I had planned on, taking several breaks during the reading so that I could sort of walk around and just sort of figure out, what I was going to do. And I sat there, and once it got, I just read the whole thing and was riveted by just what Greg had mentioned, was the fact that I had never really imagined myself being, the vilified one, because I'm white, because I'm privileged. I got all that, going on. It's crazy to sort of watch Addie and Emerson deal with these things that seem so unfair. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is so unfair. And then I go like, oh my God, this is so unfair. And like the realization that this happens, to most of the world, most of the time. And I just thought that was a genius way to flip the tables. And so, again, I'm just learning don't judge a book by its cover. I am a cover judger, and I'm going to try to stop that. But it was an amazing read.
Yeah. We're getting some love in the chat and in the Q&A. Enjoyed so much. Woohoo. Special shout out to Brooks Brantley. All the actors were on spot. Writing was so relevant. And then a congrats, timely, engrossing, shame on us play. Enjoyed the play. Muchly shame on us, just thinking. Which, yeah. Greg, I would love to, like one of the things that I was really excited about with this draft of the script when you sent it in was your thought that like in a perfect world, we would hear all of the Mandarin all the time when people are speaking Mandarin and all of the Spanish all the time when people are speaking Spanish. And I'm very excited to see what that will be like. But I wanted to check in with you about like, were you worried about that? Were you worried that would be off-putting for producers? Were you excited about what I'm assuming you would be excited about what the theatrical implications of it might be? But I just wanted to talk a little bit about language with you.
Yeah, I'm excited to see a play that or a production that would like fully translate everything. I've grown up. I only speak English, so I don't actually know Chinese. I apologize to the cast every time we start that. I'm making them learn the Chinese that I never did. But I know what it's like to sit there and have people speak in Chinese, and I sort of half know what they're talking about, and I think I know they're talking about me or they're talking about something or other. But then, so I just know what it's like to not be a privy to the conversation going on, and also that it also fascinates me to watch, say, television from other countries and see a multilingual culture toggle back and forth between 2 or 3 different languages, and
Mhm.
everyone watching it will know everything going on. So I'm interested in seeing this play live with an audience, and then having some joke in Chinese happen, and then the people who know Chinese might laugh at that, and then you would all look at them saying, "What are they laughing at?"
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Veronica would love if we can talk a little bit about adapting the script for Zoom.
Um,
Any changes with that? Yeah.
in this case, I mean, I just sort of wrote this play in a way that happens to be very zoomable. It wasn't a part of what I was thinking. It's just I wanted to do sci-fi, and then I wanted to do. I eventually wound up doing just one set, one small room, and
Mm-hmm.
then voices outside. So that all actually lends itself pretty well to Zoom. Um, the, so yeah, and the language part, this being a reading, we can actually figure out a way to signal like, hey, these are people speaking in English, but it's supposed to be Spanish now, or it's supposed to be Chinese. So
Mm-hmm.
that is that was a limitation of just doing the reading in this way, but I didn't really have to do much to make it a Zoom play because it already tended to be there.
Absolutely. This happens every time, but I do think this is a good question and a thing for us to think about. Someone was talking about the blurb about the play, and wonders if the audience coming in should know that the Americans won't be warmly welcomed, and if that might change their perceptions coming into the play. Um, and yeah, I wonder, is that a thing that you've thought about before? I know this was some of the language that you've used in the past.
Right. Yeah, I mean, to this point, the language I put up next to the play is sort of trying to entice people to read the play.
Totally.
But now, thinking about having it be done by someone actually producing the play, we may change it. But because like Sally said, it's a sci-fi play, and it's presented in that guise. But it's a sci-fi play that uses sci-fi as a way to talk about politics and talk about society and the things we are going through right now, rather than warp drives and dilithium crystals and things like that. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
I find that there's a lot of hesitance around the idea of like sci-fi plays. Like people view it as this like genre thing that is incapable. But like I think that most good sci-fi and most good fantasy is making commentary on our worlds through a very different lens and allows us to like explore those things. Welcome back, Tom Ford. Welcome back, Alan. Oh, everybody's coming back. Hi, Moira. Um, but I think it feels silly for people to like poo-poo sci-fi when clearly it allows us to tell like very engaging stories about us right now, and the ways that we view ourselves. And so I commend you on that, Greg.
yeah. I mean, there are
Um,
all different flavors of sci-fi, and some of them are trying to do different things, right? So I'm trying to use it as a way to talk about what we're going through, as opposed to the scienciness of it.
mm-mm. Um, and then we have some people in the chat talking about the Chinese, the Yoruba, the Spanish, wondering if it would be translated visually for people who are monolingual, maybe. Um, and Sally was saying it might not be translated. And
Yeah,
David Pence said that he thought the sounds of the Mandarin and Yoruba and Spanish were very magical, and thinks the more the better in a full production. I'm excited to see particularly that scene with Addie and Paz, where like a lot of people who see it might, I know that I have very little Spanish under my belt, and I think I could follow the emotional beats, but wouldn't know the specific contexts of it. And I would be very interested to see like how that works.
Yeah, the Spanish scene is the longest continuous amount of the play that's in a different language. So that's sort of a litmus test of how comfortable you are presenting a scene in a foreign language.
And
Mhm.
it seems almost like the discomfort is good for us. I mean, especially being in Maine with a primarily white audience who probably don't speak other languages. I think it's really interesting to see it take place and be the outsider, which I think a lot of the play is about. Not being the majority, and how does that feel? So I would say it's it would be fascinating. I'm sure some people would hate it because the need to understand is so strong, but I almost feel like forcing people to not is maybe kind of the point.
Mhm.
But
I mean, in the script, I give different options as to,
Mhm.
we start in language and then we switch, or we do it in language, but then we have subtitles or captions somehow,
Mhm.
or we just fully translate it and it's sink or swim on the audience's part, or maybe maybe you run and then some performances are one version, some performances are another version. I don't know, but it's
Yeah. A couple of years back, we did a show called Refuge Malja. And there was a scene near the end. There was a lot of Arabic that was used in the play, and the audience actually got to learn some words in some scenes, like in English and Arabic, and then would hear them later, and they'd be like, "Oh, I remember that word." And then near the end, there was this one sequence that was like 2 or 3 pages, just full on Arabic, no translations. And I think sitting in that space of like not knowing was really powerful, and it helped us understand this young Arabic boy who didn't speak English and was being like shuttled through all of these kind of processes that he couldn't understand fully. And so I'm excited to see how this will work when we're fully in the Yoruba, the Spanish, the Mandarin. Um, yeah. There's a question about the hand gesture between Addie and pause. They were doing this. If you joined us a little late because there were all sorts of hooplas going on, this was to indicate when people were speaking phonetically in English, but the characters were speaking in Spanish. And in the eventual full production of this play, they will just be in Spanish that whole time. So no gesture there. Yeah, other questions, other thoughts? Greg, is there anything that you would like to ask the audience, or something that you would like them to know about this piece that you haven't been able to talk about yet?
mm, I don't know. Just I'm glad you came. I'm glad if you enjoyed it. I would like what do you think your ideal experience of the play would be if you're coming there live, you're cold, and then if it was all just translated with no help, would that you know how would that experience feel to you? Do you think?
Yeah, so folks, if you want to drop those answers in the chat, some people are already responding. They'd love to see it not translated. The frustration of not understanding is the same as the characters. Um, Veronica loves the idea of leaving it untranslated.
I think it's also a nice shout out to the actors
Mhm.
who we had about, what was it, like 18 hours of rehearsal, I think. But on the second day of rehearsal is when Brooks and Soul met with the language, people who were helping us understand the language. And it was so fun watching the brain kind of melt down, because especially with the Mandarin, which is so different. It was like, I mean, I can't believe what they pulled pretty much squarely out of their butts for this reading was phenomenal. And I thought that was really just above and beyond. And when Todd and I were trying to cast, we both sent out feelers and we're like, hey, we're looking for an actor who speaks Mandarin, you know what I mean? And Yoruba, and also maybe a little bit of Spanish, and it was like 7 million people saw that, and nobody responded. And I was like, awesome. This is gonna be great. We're gonna figure it out.
I'm excited, and it seemed like the work with Jakshi was great, and Coyote was great, and so it's lovely that we have those people for next time. But also, we might find some lovely new people to help. I know that we still need to translate a bunch of the play, Greg. So we're going to be hooking him up with some translators, and I'm excited to bring a whole bunch of different people into this creative process and team to help tell this story. Bunch of more people talking about not translating, maybe try it out with no translation first, see how that works for people. Trying to gather the context through the acting would be very exciting. Some people are talking about subtitles like at the New York City Opera would allow a beautiful multilingual sound without leaving us mystified. Yeah, we've done stuff like that before too. And question from Barbara for the actors. Can you share some of your thoughts on reading/acting this out? What was that like for you? If anybody feels so inclined.
Well,
Thoughts in general, or is there a specific question?
They said thoughts in general, but was there
Go
anything
ahead,
that was
Brooks.
very exciting for you about this piece?
oh well, it was fun. It was fun. It was a great mental exercise for one. Um, and then I think in terms of the story, I just thought it was really interesting how it sort of illustrates the cyclical nature of humanity when it comes to how we treat each other sometimes. And there's a lot of parallels it draws from, centuries in the future, and how things sort of it's a reflection of things and how things occurred, on regular Earth. Um, a lot. There's so much in there, but in terms of the language, yeah, that was very, 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 very great challenge. Yeah.
You did a great job with it.
Oh,
You all did.
I'll just say it was really exciting. So this is the first time in my career that I've been cast to play Japanese, which I'm half Japanese. So that right off the bat was very exciting. I mean, we always want to look for things in scripts that we identify with, and so to have that connection for the first time, I'll never forget when Todd emailed me like I grinned ear from ear, because it was so nice to finally speak a story that felt very close to home. Also having relatives in internment camps and just understanding uh, the Japanese side of that, and what the model minority and everything like that. I mean, it's very and to be able to speak that into existence was really powerful.
Thanks for sharing that, Galen. Yeah, if there's no other questions at the moment, that's totally okay. If there's anything else the cast wants to say, feel free to like cut me off right now. But
Well,
this
I
is
did want to
yeah.
say thank you to the cast for the wonderful job they did in putting this
Mhm.
together, and thank you to Sally as well, and Portland Stage and everyone.
Mhm.
And one thing I wanted as writing this is to have your audience's sort of sympathy at any point sort of toggle back and forth, because a lot of things happen that are just, oh wait, that puts me on that side, or that puts me on the other side.
Mhm.
So if I'm successful, I'm hoping that we have people who see the same play just sort of argue about, well, no, these are the good guys. No, those are the good guys. What are you talking about? I don't know what audiences' reactions are to that notion, but that is something I'm interested in hearing about.
Absolutely. And I think there's already the workings of that in there. I think you're doing a great job on that.